One of the most difficult statements of Jesus is about the wealthy. Jesus said that it's easier for a camel to enter the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom. However, we need to understand that statement in context. First, let's back up a little bit. Some of the disciples of Jesus were considered wealthy men in their world. They were men of means, the fishermen, Matthew, the tax collector. Some of the women followers who supported Jesus, like Salome, Mary of Jerusalem, were clearly very rich women. And in the early church we had Paul, Barnabas, and a few others like Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea, who were rich people. These were not poor people. They were all in the kingdom of God. So what does Jesus really mean? Perhaps to understand that, we need to look at the two men in comparison or contrast that help us to understand this statement of Jesus. In Luke chapter 18, we meet a rich young ruler. In Luke chapter 19, we meet Zacchaeus, the chief tax collector, evidently a very rich man. The two were from opposite sides of the tracks. They could not have been more different from each other. Yet they shared one thing. Both of them were wealthy, but this was not wealth earned through hard work. The rich young ruler inherited his wealth. He came from a line of aristocrats and he had money growing up. Zacchaeus, the chief tax collector, he earned his money by fraudulent means. He cheated people in order to become rich. Now the rich young ruler, because of the kind of family he came from, was probably respected by everyone in society. Chief tax collector, however, was reviled. People saw him as a Roman collaborator. These were not the people you wanted to associate with, prevented from entering synagogue and places of worship. They also shared one other thing in common. Both of them really wanted to meet Jesus. They had a strong spiritual instinct that brought them to Christ. But their audience with Jesus met with different receptions. When the rich young ruler came to Jesus, we can almost imagine that the crowd parted in order for him to come to talk to Jesus. When Zacchaeus came to Jesus, he was a short man. That was bad enough. He couldn't see over the crowd. But we can imagine the crowd closing ranks to make sure that this hated chief tax collector does not get to see Jesus. They both had their audiences with Jesus. The rich young ruler had a question for Jesus. What else do I need to do to enter the kingdom? Jesus recited laws from the Torah. Have you done these? And the young man was full of confidence. Yes, I've done them all of my life. Do I still need something more? Jesus says, yes. There is one more thing you lack. Go sell all your wealth, all your possessions, and give everything to the poor. Now we have to understand the hyperbolic nature of Jesus' statement. I don't think that Jesus is saying that you have to become poor to become his disciples. That did not play out in history. But it meant that wealth was an attachment that this young man had to overcome, or else he cannot really be a disciple of Jesus. The story says that the young man was very sad and left. And it is in that context that Jesus says it is difficult for the wealthy to enter the kingdom. What about Zacchaeus? He too had wealth. He met Jesus. And Jesus did not talk to him about his money, but Zacchaeus understood that his wealth stood in the way of his love for God. And so Zacchaeus makes a vow or promise to Christ that I will give half of everything I own to the poor and repay everyone I cheated 4 times. I imagine that Zacchaeus was left a rather poor man when all that was done. 2 men, both had money, both discovered that wealth was a stumbling block. In the case of the rich young ruler, he could not give it up. In the case of Zacchaeus, he himself understood he had to give it up. Now, Jesus does not call upon us to impoverish ourselves in order to follow him. But the first commandment of all commandments is you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and strength. And Jesus also said, you cannot serve God and wealth. Somehow the two things are not totally compatible. Wealth, money, possessions, seem to play tricks on our minds. We want to do more, we want to do better, we want to get more. Jesus says the instinct must be the kingdom of God first. If we seek the kingdom of God first, everything else will follow. And so here are two men from different sides of the track with the same spiritual instinct, with the same experience with regards to money. One of them walked away sad because he couldn't give it up. One rejoiced because he gave it up. The last thing that Jesus said about Zacchaeus is this: salvation has come to this house. Because Zacchaeus learned without being instructed that wealth can be a stumbling block in a relationship with God. I wish all of you a good life. There's nothing wrong in having more. There's nothing wrong in working hard to earn a living. But it must not become our idol. God should be God supreme, even above wealth, possessions, and all the things we so richly desire. Have a good week. God bless.